Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good evening and Happy New Year. Welcome back. This evening, I am acting as President Tim, and it is 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January the 5th, 2021. And I now call the Winton Woods City School Board of Education organizational meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with liberty
and
and justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the roll?
Birdie,
Present.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Present.
Dr. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. McGowan,
Present.
Mrs. Douglas.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Our next item on the agenda is 2.01, which is the election of the board president for the 2021 calendar year. Board, we have to entertain nominations at this time. And I would like to nominate Mrs. Katrina Ruggles to be the president of the Winton Woods City School Board of Education.
I'll second.
Thank you. That nomination has been motioned and seconded. Are there any other nominations or any discussion? Seeing that there are no other nominations, I do declare the nomination for the board president closed. Mr. Seymour, would you please call the vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
I double I.
Double aye.
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 All right. I'll now administer the oath.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I
I, Katrina Ruggles,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
perform the duties of President
perform the duties of President
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
of the Winton Woods City School District,
of the Winton Woods City School District,
Hamilton County, Ohio. So help me
Hamilton
God.
County, Ohio. So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is my pleasure now to receive Mrs. Katrina Ruggles as the 2021 president of the Winton Woods City School Board of Education. Mrs. Ruggles, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your faith in me. It is my pleasure to serve as the 2021 board president, and I look forward to working with each of my colleagues so that we can have a successful year. With that said, I will move on to item 3.01 and the next item on the agenda, which is the election of the vice president for the 2021 calendar year. Board, I will entertain nominations at this time.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Viola Johnson as the vice president of the Winton Woods School Board.
I'd like to second. I'd like to second.
The nomination has been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there are no other nominations, I declare the nomination for a board vice president closed. Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. As the newly elected president of the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education, I now declare Dr. Viola Johnson elected Vice President of the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education for the term of 1 year. Mr. Seymour, will you now come forward and administer the Vice President oath of office?
Sure. I
Dr. Viola Johnson,
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
perform the duties of Vice President
perform the duties of Vice President
of the Board of Education,
of the Board of Education
the Winton Woods City School District,
for the Winton Woods City School District,
Hamilton County, Ohio.
Hamilton County, Ohio.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, board colleagues, for your vote of support in continuing to put me in a leadership position for the Winton Woods City School District.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and congratulations. And thank you for your service, because you have really led us over the last couple of years. And I just hope that I can do as well as you have done over the years. So, and I look forward to your support.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is 4.01, schedule of regular school board meetings. Board, a motion is in order. I assume that everyone has had a chance to look at the schedule.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the schedule of meetings as presented.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion?
Yes, I do have a question. We were scheduled for a meeting next Monday, the 11th. Is that not going to happen, or has that been changed?
As far as I know, that meeting is still standing. We will still have that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, but if anything changes, go ahead, Randy, what were you saying?
I don't have that on here. January the 11th, we don't
Yeah.
have,
It's not on the schedule.
it's
Yeah,
not,
was that going to be a work session or what
Oh,
was it?
was that what we talked about at one time?
I think so.
Okay, but it's not on this schedule.
No.
I'm sorry, and I can't get into my board doc, so I can't see it.
it is not on your schedule. The work session was so close to the organizational meeting and then the regular meeting that we didn't put one on for the 11th, Mr. Smith and I.
Okay, perfect. No, because I had a conflict, so that's perfect. I was going to come to our meeting, but it looks like our first meeting will be on January 25th. So I
Right.
just wanted to confirm that.
The only other thing, Mrs. Ruggless, is we briefly discussed what if we wanted, where we wanted to hold the work sessions, because
Correct.
I had it listed as here, and we may not want to. We may want to change that to the, I think you thought maybe the media center. At the
Correct. I was, yeah, as part of the discussion, I wanted to bring up to the board members, when we have our work sessions, do we want to have them? I didn't think we wanted to have it in the cafeteria area, and definitely didn't want to have it in the board office, because it's not, we're not able to socially distance. And I know that some people will be remote, but if we could consider moving it to the media center for those who want to meet in person.
I would agree. The media center makes most sense.
I'll make that change.
Okay.
So, one other question, Mr. Seymour, then you'll send out the notifications to make that,
These meetings, I won't have to send out a notification. I'll change this in the agenda, and these meetings stand as your platform. The only time I would send a notice is if you changed the location, added a meeting, or deleted one of these.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Otherwise, people get confused. So
Okay.
this schedule will be posted everywhere. So I'll make
Okay.
sure the correct locations are posted.
Okay. Very
Great
good.
question, Dr. Johnson. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded. So seeing that there weren't any more discussion, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan's,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 5.01, the resolution of the adoption of fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor.
Yes, I submitted to you in the agenda a resolution and also the entire budget that I will forward downtown to the Hamilton County Auditor's Office. This budget is only for funds like your general fund. It's for the bond retirement, permanent improvement, and classroom facilities. It's only for those funds that collect taxes. What we're doing here is sharing with the county auditor that the levies you have on the real estate tax collections are needed by the district to fulfill the district's obligations. And then, as you know, in April, I'll bring back to you the county auditors set the tax rates and the values for the district. And my light just went out.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Did you pay the bill?
Without any movement, but thanks.
There it is.
So
He's got to move around.
What we're doing is we're just submitting the budget to the Hamilton County Auditor so he can certify back to you those real estate tax values and those rates. I also, at the next regular work session, will bring to you all those values. And if you've read or kept up, the state of Ohio had a major reassessment of values, and Hamilton County was no exception. The average real estate value went up 16.7% in Hamilton County for this year. So I'll bring to you all those increased values, what taxing authorities like Green Hills, Winton Woods, City, Forest Park, the different subdivisions, and how much they changed. Your total values went up approximately $75 million. So basically, Winton Woods is fortunate enough to be back to where they were in 2010 before the real estate crisis. So in 12 years, you've done a complete cycle and almost back to where you were in 2010, if you remember the real estate crash. But anyway, sorry to go on about that, but the resolution is from the treasurer to the board for the general operating fund, the bond retirement fund, permanent improvement fund, and classroom facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the adoption of the fiscal year 2022 tax budget and the 2021 tax budget as presented.
I'll second that.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Kubiletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan's,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is item 6.01, the investment of inactive and interim funds. Mr. Seymour, you have the floor again.
Here I am asking the board's permission to invest all interim and inactive funds, of course, pursuant to the board policy and the Ohio Revised Code as it affects those idle funds. And as you know, we've been investing our building fund proceeds and those have dwindled significantly. So, but I'm asking for your permission to invest those funds and then bring those reports to you on a regular basis.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in order to authorize the treasurer to invest in inactive and interim funds.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the treasurer to invest in active and interim funds and permissible investments pursuant to board policy and Ohio Revised Code when funds are available.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Kubiletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
McGowan's,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is 7.01, the authorization of official signatures. Board, a motion is in order.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that per the Ohio Revised Code 3313.51, request a motion for the authorization, the president and treasurer to be the official signers of payment of funds for the Board of Education, and further authorizes that one of the two authorized signed checks on all Board of Education accounts, and that the treasurer's signature may be a facsimile.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Rutherford.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. And the next item on the agenda is 8.01, which is the resolution requesting a county auditor to make advance payment of taxes. Mr. Seymour, back to you.
Yes, here I'm just asking the board to approve the resolution. Hamilton County Auditor requests that the Board of Education or the governing board of any government agency that collects real estate taxes gets permission to draw on taxes paid as an advance until a settlement is ready. And basically, then almost every other week, I request that any taxes be drawn and paid to the district's funds.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payment of taxes as presented.
I'll second it.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call that vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Rutherford.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 9.01, which is regarding fund transfers, advances, and advance returns. Back to you.
Here I'm just getting permission from the board authorizing me to make fund-to-fund advances and the advance returns and transfers as needed throughout the year. Of course, the board always has to approve those transfers. And historically, we've never had to advance to any other funds, but we have made transfers, as you know, to our athletic fund. And the board has always adopted that in the appropriations resolution and also authorized me to do it through board resolution. So any transfers that I would make, I would get prior permission from the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the treasurer to make fund-to-fund advances, advance returns, and transfers as needed throughout the year with board ratification as part of the financial reports at the next regular meeting.
I'll second that.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Rutherford.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 10.01, which is regarding a board member participation in employee benefits plan. Mr. Seymour, back to you.
Yes, each year we have the board approve that if any board member should elect to at any time throughout the year to participate in the employees group health benefit plan, they would have the right to do so at any time, giving the circumstances that they wanted to participate. And of course, the board member would pay the full cost of those benefits. The cost of health insurance is $716 for single and $1,804 for family. And the cost of dental is $32 for single and $90 for family. And the board, after adoption of this, a board member could elect to do that if they so desired throughout the year. And of course, anyone could elect to do so tonight. But when a board member elects to do so, they would need to elect it at a board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in order.
I'd like to make, Madam President, I'd like to make the motion as per Ohio Revised Code 3313.202. The current board members may exercise their option to participate in the district's employee benefit plans at each board member's expense. Members exercising their option to participate must state so publicly and be recorded in the official minutes. The cost for the health insurance is $716.21 for a single, $1,804.84 for a family. The cost for dental insurance is $32.47 for a single and $89.13 for a family.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion, or is anybody interested in electing health and dental?
I'm not necessarily interested in electing, but I do have a question. Is this like an open enrollment, Mr. Seymour, in that someone could elect to use it anytime throughout the year as long as they did it in a public meeting?
The organizational meeting is considered your open enrollment.
Okay.
And then if you decided to throughout the rest of the year, you would need one of those qualifying events.
Okay, yes, I wanted to make that clear.
Or a qualifying event, which, you know, is usually birth of a child, divorce, loss of position, or
Sure.
or loss of insurance.
Yes,
But
okay,
the organizational meeting is like your open enrollment time.
yes. Thank you for clearing that up.
Uh-huh.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is 11.01, which is the fiscal officer of the student activities account. Mr. Seymour, will you please give us a little bit more detail on this item?
Right. Student activity accounts change their budgets and adjust their revenues and their fundraising events. And as you can imagine, that was quite a change last year from the start of the year till the end of the year. And this year has been kind of a strange year for them too. So if you we're asking to make the superintendent the sign-off officer on all those student activity budgets. We've got them from the advisors in the athletic department as of right now, but as they make changes, then Mr. Smith just signs off on them and we go on. Of course, the board adopts the athletic fund and the student activity fund as a group, but there's, as you'll see in the next motion, there's multiple groups under there, and we combine all those small budgets into one for the board approval. But somebody has to sign off on the student activity individual budgets, and the superintendent does that. I don't know if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in. Let's get the motion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said unless you have any other questions.
Oh, let's get the motion on the floor first. So board, a motion is in order to appoint the superintendent as the sign-off officer of all activities. Let's get a motion.
Okay, I'd like to request the appointment of, I'd like to make a motion to request the appointment of the superintendent to be the sign-off officer of all student activity programs, and these programs shall be presented to the board once each year. The superintendent will also have the authority to approve and/or modify the student activity budgets throughout the year as warranted.
I'll second that.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion regarding this item? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call that vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is 12.01, which is regarding the student activity accounts. Board, a motion is in order.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to request authorization for the student activity accounts for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 and the calendar year 2021 as presented.
Thank you,
I'll
Dr.
second.
It has been,
Mr. Birdie, second?
who seconded?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff did.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously, and we'll move on to item number 13.01, which is the authorization of the then and now certificate. Mr. Seymour, would you please give the board more details on this item?
Yes, according to Ohio Revised Code 5705.41, the board can give me the authority as what's known as a then and now certificate. Basically, what this means is that all purchases through the Board of Education have to be on what's known as a requisition and a PO. If someone goes and makes a purchase and they didn't have a purchase order or a requisition, the purchase shouldn't go through. However, as specified by Ohio Revised Code, any purchase under $3,000, the treasurer can go ahead and approve the requisition, provided that the funds are available within the appropriations. Anything over that amount would have to come to the board for their permission in order to honor the purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, let's get a motion on the floor.
I'd like to make a motion as per Ohio Revised Code 5705.41, request authorization for the treasurer to exercise the then and now certification of funds, provided the funds are within the board approved appropriations and free of any previous encumbrances.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call that vote?
Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously, and we'll move on to item number 14.01, which is the authorization to modify appropriations. Again, Mr. Seymour, please give us more details.
Here I'm asking the board's permission to adjust line item appropriations as needed throughout the year, and then bring amended appropriations to be adopted by the board at the next regular meeting. The treasurer must stay within the funds available as certified by the Hamilton County Budget Commission and or approved by the Board of Education on or before June 30th by the Budget Commission by June 30th. Basically, what we're saying is that you're giving permission to transfer from one fund, one line item to another line item within a fund. Say curriculum department decides on a textbook adoption, and then they decide to go virtual versus hard text. Well, that's a transfer of funds, but it didn't change the total appropriations for the board, because we had a lot of that during remote learning. We did a lot of purchasing of software versus hard text. So I just modified the appropriations and then got the board to approve it at the end of the year for any changes, but I never changed the total appropriation of the general fund.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion is in order.
I'll make a motion requesting authorization for the treasurer to modify the original line item appropriations as set by the board. The treasurer shall not alter the total amended appropriations as adopted by the board. All modifications must be within the last board adopted appropriations measure. The treasurer shall stay within the funds available as certified by the Budget Commission of Hamilton County or as amended and approved on or after or before June 30th by the Budget Commission.
I'll second
Second.
that.
Go ahead, thank you.
I'm sorry.
No,
Dr.
that's
Johnson.
okay. We'll put you down. Mr. McCown's second it.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Kupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan's,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is item number 15.0, which is the recognition of support groups. Board, a motion is in order.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion for the recognition of our support groups as the athletic boosters, the performing arts boosters, the Winton Woods PTA, and each of the support groups have provided the board with their 2020-2021 budgets for review.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
I'd like to make one comment if I could. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the budgets, but the athletic budget, they had no revenue. They couldn't
Yeah.
spend anything, and all they're doing this year is scholarships. So it's also greatly affected the performing arts group budget and also the PTA. So I'm glad that I got them all submitted. So down the road, when people see what was this, 10 years from now, people are going to wonder what happened this year. And it'll be supported by some doctors.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that comment because I know when I looked at it, I had to remind myself this was an unusual year.
Yes.
And so this is the reason why I think it
We
looked
didn't
the way it
allow any, Mr. Smith and I approved no fundraisers after the pandemic started, door-to-door sales.
Right, sure.
Yeah, hopefully when everybody sees 2020, they will just, realize that this was just an unprecedented year with a lot of changes and things are not normal. So, but thank you for
Absolutely.
making that comment.
It's been
Mr.
a tough
Seymour.
year for the support group to raise money.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to item number 16.01, which is the appointment of the purchasing agent. Board, a motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion to request authorization for Mr. Steve Denny, Executive Director of Accountability and Business Affairs, to serve as the superintendent's designated purchasing agent for the district on all purchases not exceeding $250,000 as per board policy.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion?
I just have one question. Mr. Seymour, is that the same amount that we always had or did that amount go up?
That amount changed recently by board policy. So I made it match the board policy. We changed the board policy about a year ago
Okay,
due to federal procurement guidelines. And so we adjust anything over 250,000. He can't just go by. He has to do sealed bid. However, you can exceed the 250,000 on certain things: health insurance, a transportation contract, things like that. But if he's going to do any type of construction repair, he can't do that without competitive bid and board approval. So Mr. Smith had me line it up with the board policy of 250,000.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, so for purchasing items, it can go over 250. It cannot go over 250,000, but when you're saying healthcare and different things could go over, is that considered a purchasing item or?
Well, healthcare is covered under your contracts with your employee groups. And then we don't have contracted transportation, but if we did, that would be covered. But I can't think of any other contracts. We do have a contract with Hamilton County Educational Service Center that exceeds 250,000, but each line within that does not. That's for the purchase of physical therapy, speech therapy, things like that. But when you issue a PO, like to repair or to do pavement work or to,
Right.
You have to get competitive bids and get board approval and do the sealed bid process. So he couldn't just go ahead and issue that purchase order without board permission, is what we're saying.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. I just forgot whether or not we called the vote.
No, we didn't. We need to call the vote.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Sure. Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Ms. Ruggles.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is 17.01, which is the continuation of the membership in the OSBA. Board of motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion to request approval to continue membership and subscription for the following. Number 1, Ohio School Boards Association, January through December 2021. Subscription to the Briefcase and School Management News, January to December 2021. And number 3, participation in the Ohio School Boards Association Legal Assistance Fund from January through December 2021.
I'll second that.
And I just want to clarify, just for those who are listening, OSBA is the Ohio School Boards Association. I know Mr. McGowan read off some things, but OSBA, just to spell it out. So it's been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously, and we'll move on to 17.02, which is the continuation of the membership of the NSBA. Board, a motion is in order.
I'll make a
Madam
motion to request approval for continuation of the membership in the NSBA or National School Board Association, January through December of 2021.
I'll second that.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles.
Aye. And the next item on the agenda is 18.01, which is board councils, committees, and legislative liaison appointments. And I'll go ahead and name the appointments. I've sent an email regarding the superintendent's committees that we will remain in our same committees. I made a few changes because it seemed as if I had a lot of committee head appointments and I wanted to spread the love a little. And so I'll start with the Ohio School Boards Association and National School Boards Association Legislative Liaison. That is myself and Dr. Johnson. The Great Oaks Board of Education, that is Mr. Birdie through December 31st. Is that 2021 or 22? 2022, okay. The Superintendent's Review and Evaluation Liaison, which is myself and Dr. Johnson. The Treasurer's Review and Evaluation Liaison is myself and Mr. Birdie. The municipal representatives, Forest Park, is Dr. Johnson, and secondary, myself. Green Hills is Dr. Cupoletti, and secondary, Mr. Birdie. Springfield Township in Wyoming is Mr. McGowan's, and secondary, myself. Public Records Designee, ORC 109.43 is Mr. Randy Seymour. The Superintendent Committee Liaisons, as I mentioned before, we will pretty much keep them the same. I tweaked a couple adjustments, but for the Student Achievement is myself, primary, and Dr. Cupoletti, secondary. Community Engagement is Mr. McGowan and myself. Financial Advisory, primary, is Mr. Birdie. Myself is backup. Policy is Dr. Cupoletti and Dr. Johnson. And Athletics and Performing Arts is Dr. Johnson and Mr. McGowan. As we discussed before the pandemic, for the board member handbook, all board members were going to participate in updating that. The OSBA Urban Network Liaison would be myself. The OSBA SALT Liaison is Dr. Johnson and Dr. Cupoletti as backup. Hearts and minds. Go ahead.
Can you define the SALT for me, please? SALT.
Dr. Johnson?
It's Student Achievement Leadership Team.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Randy, did you get
in the
all-
accounting world, that's state and local tax.
Mrs. Rogers, who was Urban Advisory Network? You and who else?
That was myself.
Okay, thank you. I got all the rest of them.
Okay, and I'll send this out to everyone so that we all have it in the next day or so. So the next item on the agenda is 19.0, which is the Board of Education Operating Protocols. Board, a motion is in order to adopt the Board of Education Operating Protocol for 2021.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to review and adopt the Board of Education Operating Protocol for 2020-2021.
I'll second.
It has been motioned and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Birdie,
Aye.
Dr. Cupoletti,
Aye.
Dr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. McGowan,
Aye.
Mrs. Rogers.
Aye. The vote passes unanimously. And our next item on the agenda is other business as necessary. Board, unless are there any other business or comments or items that we need to entertain before we close out the meeting? Seeing as none, this moves us to item 21, which is adjournment. So if everybody is okay and all minds are clear, I just want to say once again, I am pleased to serve as this year's president, and alongside with Dr. Viola Johnson, I'm sure you're going to give me a lot of support now that everybody is all back and the team's all back, and I'm looking forward to the new year. So I would like to call this meeting of the Winton Woods City School District Board of Education organizational meeting on Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, adjourned. And thank you and have a wonderful evening.